You wake up eyes open, and before your feet even touch the floor, before you've said a word to anyone, before you've had water, before your brain has fully crossed into wakefulness, your thumb is already moving, scrolling, just checking. Just a quick look and then 20 minutes disappear. You don't even know where they went. Here's what I want to ask you. How do you feel for the rest of that day? Not right after you put the phone down. I mean throughout the whole day. Are you focused? Are you calm? Or do you feel slightly scattered, slightly restless, slightly like you can't fully settle into anything, like some part of your brain is still back in that scroll, waiting for the next thing? If that sounds familiar, I need you to understand that what you're feeling is not a mood. It is not a personality trait. It is a measurable, documented neurological consequence of what you did in the first 7 minutes of your morning, and it is quietly shaping your brain in ways that go much deeper than most people realize. Today we are going to talk about what morning scrolling is actually doing to your dopamine system, not in a vague, general way, but specifically, mechanically, with real science behind every single claim, because once you understand what is happening inside your brain during those first minutes of the day, you will never look at your phone the same way again. Let's start with something most people don't know about the first few minutes of waking up, because this window is far more important than anyone told you. When you are asleep, your brain moves through distinct electrical states. Deep sleep is dominated by what are called delta waves, slow, sweeping patterns associated with the deepest recovery the brain does. As sleep naturally lightens toward morning, your brain transitions into theta waves. Theta is a remarkable state. It is associated with deep relaxation, creativity, intuitive thinking, and the kind of loose, wandering mental activity that sits right at the edge of dreaming. This is the state your brain is in for the first several minutes after you open your eyes, and it matters enormously. This theta window is when your brain is doing something very specific. It is consolidating the transition from unconscious to conscious. It is integrating the emotional and informational processing that happened during sleep. Neuroscientists and performance researchers have noted that the theta and early alpha wave state right after waking is actually one of the most cognitively receptive windows of the entire day. Your brain in this state is soft, open, and highly impressionable. It is like freshly turned soil. Whatever you put into it in this window tends to set the emotional and cognitive tone for the hours that follow. When you grab your phone and start scrolling in this window, here is exactly what happens. Your brain is violently pulled from that theta state and thrown into beta waves, the high-frequency, high-load brainwave state associated with active thinking, reactivity, and stress processing. NS surgeon and science communicator Dr. Karen Raj has described this as skipping the natural neurological transition your brain needs, going straight from deep sleep to high-stress activation. Research from 2024 confirmed that overloading the brain with stimulating content in this early waking window forces it into beta activation too early, leaving the person feeling cognitively scattered and emotionally reactive for hours afterward. You didn't just check your phone. You blew up your morning brain state before it had a chance to form. And then the dopamine piece kicks in. And this is where it gets very serious. Dopamine is one of the most misunderstood chemicals in popular conversation. People call it the pleasure chemical, but that is not quite right. Dopamine is not about pleasure. Dopamine is about anticipation, motivation, and craving. Its job is to make you want things, to drive you toward seeking, searching, and pursuing. Every time something novel or surprising or emotionally stimulating crosses your screen, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine, not because you've got something good, but because you might. That uncertainty, that tiny not knowing what the next post or notification will bring, is what makes the system so hard to stop. The brain is not chasing the reward, it is chasing the possibility of reward. And social media is engineered from the ground up to keep that possibility always just one scroll away. Now here is what this does in the morning specifically, and this is the part that most people have never been told. Dopamine operates in a system that is calibrated to your baseline. Your brain is always trying to maintain a set point, a stable level of dopamine activity that it considers normal. When something spikes dopamine sharply above that set point, the brain notices, and it compensates by pulling the baseline back down. This is why the dopamine hit from social media feels good in the moment, but almost always leaves you feeling slightly flat or restless minutes after you put the phone down. The system overshot, and the brain corrected. You are now below your baseline, and now everything that doesn't have that same kind of stimulation, a conversation, a task, a quiet moment, feels dull, hard to engage with, or genuinely unsatisfying. When you start your morning with a sharp dopamine spike from your phone, you are setting an elevated demand for stimulation that your brain will spend the entire rest of the day trying to meet. Dr. Singh, a neuroscientist who has spoken on digital wellness, described it precisely this way. The abrupt dopamine spike from morning phone use disrupts stable cortisol patterns, negatively impacting energy levels, mood, and focus throughout the day. You are not just making one bad choice in the morning, you are setting the neurological threshold for the next 12 hours. And there is a study I want to tell you about that takes this from theory to hard biological evidence. Researchers at Radboud University in the Netherlands, with collaborators at Brown University and Leiden University, used something called PET scanning, which allows scientists to directly measure brain chemistry too. Study the relationship between smartphones, social app use, and dopamine synthesis capacity in healthy adults. What they found was striking. The more time people spent on socially interactive smartphone apps, things like messaging, social media, and networking, the lower their dopamine synthesis capacity in the bilateral putamen. That is a specific region of the brain involved in reinforcement learning, motivation, and habit formation. And it wasn't about total screen time. It was specifically about the kind of use. Social scrolling had a uniquely measurable negative relationship with the brain's actual ability to produce dopamine. This is not just a pattern of behavior. It is a biological shift. The brain of a heavy social media user is literally manufacturing less of its own dopamine, the chemical it needs for motivation, for drive, for finding meaning and satisfaction in ordinary life. Think about what that means in practical terms. People who scroll heavily in the mornings often report that it becomes harder over time to find satisfaction in activities that used to feel good. Reading a book feels slow, a conversation doesn't hold their attention, a walk feels boring, sitting quietly feels unbearable. This is not laziness. This is a dopamine system that has been so chronically stimulated by artificial, algorithmically optimized content that ordinary life can no longer generate enough of a signal to feel worth engaging with. The phone raised the floor and raised the floor, and now everything below that level feels like nothing. And there is one more layer to this that most people completely miss: what your phone is doing to your cortisol at 7 a.m. Your body wakes up every morning with a surge of cortisol, not because something is wrong. This is the cortisol awakening response, a natural hormonal mechanism designed to sharpen your alertness and prepare you for the demands of the day. It is your biology's built-in energizing signal, and it typically peaks within 30 to 45 minutes of waking. When this process unfolds without interference, it produces a clean, grounded sense of alertness. You feel ready without being wired. When you pick up your phone within minutes of waking, the notifications, the headlines, the messages, the social content, all of it triggers an additional cortisol response on top of the one your body was already generating. Research has shown that text message notifications alone can produce measurable increases in cortisol and saliva. When you stack phone-triggered cortisol on top of the natural cortisol spike, you overshoot. Your nervous system gets pushed into a state of low-grade alarm before you have taken a single step out of bed, and your brain, already in that fragile theta-to-waking transition, codes this hyperstimulated state as the new normal for the day. You spend the rest of the morning trying to come down from a cortisol spike you didn't need. You feel jittery, reactive, or strangely anxious, and you don't know why, because all you did was check your phone. A 2025 study published in PNAS Nexus found that blocking mobile internet access on smartphones significantly improved sustained attention, mental health, and subjective well-being in participants. When people's ability to doom scroll was removed, their brains recovered measurable cognitive function and reported noticeably better mental states. The phone is not neutral. Its absence produces documented improvement. So what do you actually do with all of this? Because this is a wellness channel, and the point is never just to make you feel bad about your habits. The point is to give you something real and actionable. The first practice is a phone-free morning window, and I want to be specific about the minimum that is actually meaningful. Based on the research around brainwave transitions, cortisol patterns, and dopamine baseline setting, you need at least 30 minutes of phone-free time after waking for your brain to complete its natural waking process without interference. The goal is 60 minutes. That hour is the most neurologically important hour of your day. What you do in it, or rather what you don't do, determines the baseline state your brain carries into everything that follows. The second practice is to physically create distance from your phone in the morning. Not just willpower distance, literal physical distance. Keep your phone charging in another room overnight. Buy a separate alarm clock if you use your phone as one. The research on habit disruption is clear. When the friction between you and a behavior increases, the behavior decreases. If your phone is on your nightstand, you will reach for it. If your phone is in the hallway, you won't. You are not testing your discipline. You are engineering your environment. The third practice is to replace the scroll with something that works with your brain's theta state rather than against it. Journaling in the morning, even just 3 to 5 minutes of unstructured writing, keeps the brain in that creative, integrative theta and alpha space that is so valuable right after waking. Slow walking without your phone lets the brain complete its natural transition. A few minutes of conscious breathing or stillness, doing nothing, intentionally, is not wasted time. It is your nervous system setting a stable dopamine and cortisol baseline that will carry you through the day without the crash. The fourth practice is to protect what dopamine researchers call low stimulation time. This means building regular periods into your day, not just mornings where you are not consuming content, not receiving input, not being stimulated by a screen, walking without earbuds, eating without a phone, sitting in a car without playing audio. These quiet gaps feel uncomfortable at first because your dopamine baseline has been calibrated to expect constant stimulation. But they are how the brain recalibrates. They are how the natural satisfaction system recovers. Over days and weeks of consistent low stimulation time, people report that ordinary life starts to feel more interesting again. The book holds attention again. The conversation feels rich again. The ability to sit quietly and feel okay comes back. Your brain was not designed to wake up to a slot machine. It was designed to wake up slowly, to transition gently from the unconscious into the conscious, to build its motivation and focus from the inside out, not to have it hijacked from the first second of the day by an algorithm that is specifically designed to override everything your brain would naturally do. The most successful, focused, mentally clear people are not the ones who check their phones the fastest. They are the ones who understand that the first hour of their day belongs to them, not to their feed, not to their notifications, not to other people's content. That hour is yours, and what you do with it is either building your brain or borrowing from it. If this video made you stop and think about what your mornings actually look like, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment and tell me what time do you pick up your phone in the morning. Be honest, I want to know. And subscribe to Wellness Over Time, because this is the kind of conversation we have here. Real science, real implications, and real tools for living a life that actually feels like yours. I'll see you in the next one.